access to the attention of our children and young people for hours every single day, almost entirely without oversight. No one in this room can ignore the impact the screens have on our children and young people. Here are some facts. We know that almost 80% of minors look at their phone hourly. Almost 50% of them do it constantly. These services are highly addictive and carefully engineered to keep attention. Algorithms and endless data collection track every behavior, making it almost impossible to put down the phone. And how are the children rewarded for staying online? Well, a hit of dopamine. The price for putting down the phone, emptiness and anxiety. And what do our children see online? In Denmark, 50% of young people report see violent and offensive content. They can end up in rabbit holes, seek murder, violence, suicide, and self-injury. And if it's not violent content, it's commercials. 50% of content viewed online is commercial. The platforms are becoming an ever-increasing commercial environment for our minors. And who's behind this experiment? Well, pick your favorite villain. For some, it's Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. For others, it's the Communist Party in Beijing and the tech proxies at TikTok. And the children? Well, at least in Denmark, they say, help us. In Denmark, almost 70% report that they want to spend less time on social media. And the parents, the message I hear from parents is the same. We need support. We need your help. Because no parent and no child can stand alone against the raw forces of these algorithmic systems. Only we, politicians, have the power to end this experiment. I'm proud of this Parliament, that we can stand together in protecting our minors online. I want to thank the brilliant shadow rapporteurs working on this file. Thank you for taking responsibility. Thank you for standing on the side of parents and children. I hope the rest of you will join us in supporting this report. Remember, also many member states are taking actions. Some are introducing age limits on social media, others are removing phones from classrooms. And the Commission is also paying attention. I'm pleased to see President von der Leyen experts group on this issue. The European Parliament cannot and should not be silent on this topic. And therefore, this report is important, and it has been built through broad cooperation across almost all political groups. The report follows a clear logic. It must be safer for children and young people to use online services, also non-social media. And the services should not be accessible for children under 16 years unless the parents have given consent. I know that the age limit will dominate headlines, but colleagues, this report is so much more than that. Let me give you a few examples. We want legislation requiring age-appropriate design and safety by design. We want a ban on loot boxes and other forms of randomized manipulative content. And we also want a ban on engagement-based recommender algorithms and the most harmful addictive design practices. Together with the strong enforcement of the Digital Services Act, these measures will raise the level of protection for children dramatically. And with this report, we finally draw a line. We are saying clearly to the platforms, your services are not designed for children, and the experiment ends here. I look very much forward to hear the debate, and thank you very much for the attention, and especially thanks for the cooperation so far. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schaldemose. I'll now give the floor to our Vice President from the Commission, Mrs. Virkkunen.
Honourable members, rapporteur, all the shadow rapporteurs, I want to thank you very much for your work. As President von der Leyen has repeatedly stated, protection of minors online is an absolute priority for the Commission. And we know that this is also a high priority across our member states as well as in this House, as your report very clearly shows. Therefore, at the EU level, we have already taken many steps to protect and empower children and youth online. Because the online world is a part of our everyday life, and children have the right to take part in it safely. To safely seek information, learn and be connected to their peers, develop their digital skills and be engaged members of society. The Digital Services Act is our landmark legislation for protecting minors online. It's because of the DSA that protection of minors was taken seriously by the online platforms. Immediately on day one, when the DSA was in place, the Commission asked for measures that online platforms have set to protect minors. Since then, we have strongly enforced the DSA. We have opened cases against 4 adult platforms as well as against TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, focusing on age assurance and protecting minors from addiction and health risks. We also stopped the launch of TikTok Lite in the EU. The DSA minor protection guidelines, we have now very clearly and concretely also identified measures the platforms need to take protect children from online risks, such as grooming, harmful content, problematic and addictive behaviors, as well as cyberbullying and harmful commercial practices. This is very relevant that we have now these guidelines. It's very relevant for our DSA investigations because now we have a clear benchmarks to work with. And the request for information we recently sent to Snapchat, YouTube, Apple Store and Google Play show that we are already making concrete use of these guidelines. And we work with the national authorities to make sure that the smaller platforms also follow the guidelines as well. We have also published a blueprint now for an EU age verification app. And this is an open source standard on how age verification can be done effectively and in full respect of privacy and data protection. This app is currently being tested by several member states, platforms and end users as well, and it can set a global standard for age checks without requiring anyone to give their information to online platforms. The Audiovisual Media Services Directive is also key in protecting minors against harmful content. It applies to audiovisual media service providers, also video sharing platforms. We are currently now evaluating the directive and will update it in next year. We are also implementing the AI Act. It clearly prohibits AI that manipulates children or exploits their vulnerabilities in a harmful manner. It provides safeguards for high-risk AI systems and ensures transparency for AI interacting with people, including children. We have also proposed a regulation to prevent and combat child sexual abuse to better protect children from these horrible crimes. Also, the proposed revision of the Criminal Law Directive against child sexual abuse aims to combat new threats such as AI-generated child sexual abuse material or pedophile manuals. The terrorist content online regulation is another important tool for member states to prevent that children are exposed to terrorist material online. Furthermore, to address the specific needs of children who are increasingly exposed to online requirement and radicalization, grooming and also child sexual abuse, and the other threats, we are now preparing an action plan on the protection of children against crime. Building on consultations with over 6,000 children, we will launch an action plan against cyberbullying early next year. This plan will present an EU-wide response to better prevent and act on this devastating threat. And we will present a Digital Fairness Act to address remaining gaps in consumer protection in the digital environment, paying particular attention to children as young consumers, while ensuring alignment with our existing laws. Finally, let me recall that under the Better Internet for Kids strategy, we have for many years supported the incredible work of the National Safer Internet Centres, which very concretely support children and families all over the member states. However, being frontrunners on protecting minors online does not mean that we should not do more. Our President has called for experts to advise her on the best approach for Europe with regards to possible social media restrictions. In this process, we will hear all perspectives from children to parents and international partners. All these listed measures show how the EU is at the forefront of securing children's well-being in the digital era. But we could not do this without your support. We will continue to work with this House to make sure that our children are safe and empowered online.
Grazie, onorevole Balcev.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Mr. Valchev.
Благодаря, госпожо председател.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Commissioner, colleagues. Let's be honest. There is no single European recipe to protect children across all member states. Europe is a mosaic of different cultures, values, and child-rearing philosophies. We need to respect that. So this cannot be merely about imposing more bans. The truth is that this is a problem not addressed by penalties, but by discussion, by social consensus. We need parents, teachers, young people to be heard in the public discourse instead of just expecting them to follow orders. If we want a safer online environment, we need greater social engagement. We do have some important rules. The Audiovisual Media Service Directive, it has clear rules for the protection of minors. We also have the revised Better Internet for Kids Plus strategy, which promotes quality content, safer platforms, and effective reporting mechanisms. So what I would like to ask you to do is let's give member states space to make decisions that make sense in their realities. Let's support the process instead of imposing a framework. Protecting children is not a question of restrictions and penalties. It's a question of wisdom, dialogue, and common goodwill. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dora David.
Döntéshozóként
You as decision makers are responsible for our safety. You are like our teachers and parents. We can only turn to you when we need protection and help. I ask you to help us so that the internet would become a space which inspires us, teaches us, and respects us.
Teenager, but she is by no means alone. She speaks for many children across Europe. The internet has so many benefits, but it was not designed with children in mind. Yet 97% of children over the age of 3 in Europe are online and are exposed to risks. Our report targets harmful commercial practices designed to keep children hooked to their services. So we call to ban profiling-based recommender systems for minors, gambling-like features in video games like loot boxes, and incentives for kidfluencing that pressure children to constantly create content for likes and views. But protecting children is about more than bans. We must balance their rights with their safety, which is why we call for an age limit of 16 under which youngsters can access social media, video sharing platforms, and AI companions, but subject to parental consent. Our goal is empowerment, not exclusion. We want to help children and parents to navigate the digital space safely. But they need help with this. Otherwise, it's a struggle of David and Goliath. We need everyone to play their part, not just parents, but also platforms. So we must close gaps in our laws, strengthen enforcement, and enhance education. Like Anna, children see dangers but feel powerless. We have the power. So given the good cooperation between the political groups, I'm hopeful that we will indeed use our power to protect minors and not let them down. Anna, számíthatsz.
Anna, you can rely on us.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Alex Ajus-Saliba.
The world online nowadays is not a safe place for our children, primarily because of the model which is followed by our platforms, which mean that our children are for too long hours on their smartphones or on their tablets. In certain cases, the algorithms are pushing even content which is addictive, highly addictive, and harms children. It has devastating effects on them. Cyberbullying is increasing, constantly increasing, and also includes false, fake profiles or images of our children. We had a number of cases in Europe which actually led to suicide, and the biggest risk is that of online grooming and the sexual abuse on our children. As a parent, this is really worrying, and it keeps me awake at night. I'm not alone in being so worried. All our citizens know that something is intrinsically wrong here. The large technological platforms know all about this. We heard about whistleblowers who worked with them, but they don't care. And they don't want to act. They are making enormous profits on the backs of our children, and this is not an accident or a mistake. It is actually a part of the way that social media works. They keeps you attentive, keeps your eyes on the screen. This is the secret of the success of every platform. And if they do not act, we must act. And that is why this report is so important. The Commission must carry out its keep to its promise to address this question and this crisis with urgency. Where is the group of experts that had to present solutions to the end of this year? Every year we're losing. This has a high price on the generation which is growing up. The Parliament must take a position. We want a minimum age for our children to have access to media social. We need a verification of age, and not only our children press yes or no that they are over the minimum age. We want to address the addictive design of these platforms. We need more social digital justice, where we have limits on practices that platforms use, a strong and safe online environment for our children. Thank you.
Jorge Martín Frías.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, President. Ladies and gentlemen, the digital world has transformed our lives, our work, our social relations. But like all progress, it comes with threats and risks. And the most exposed to those risks are our children, to bullying, emotional manipulation, even suicide. We have to protect our minors. It's a moral duty. And to do that, parents are on the front line for caring for their children. They need to be given all the tools that they need to ensure safety of their children online. We can't accept, however, proposals which use the pretext of protecting children, but will then open the door to violating privacy or mass disproportionate data gathering. This is not a competency of the European Commission. It's just another attempt to gather more competencies and take responsibilities from states and from families.
On behalf of ECR is Kosma Zlotowski.
Yes, thank you very much, President. Ladies and gentlemen, children are our pride and joy and our future. We would all agree that they have to be protected from the pathologies, including online. Internet is like the forest. You can explore it, you can relax there, you can spend time with others. But in the forest, just like on the internet, there are dangers, and it is easy to get lost in both of these places. And nobody would imagine that children would be safe there without the care of their parents. And in both cases, there is a need for education, there's a need for awareness of the threats and dangers and responsibility, and not another helping of union bureaucracy. The idea that the Commission can ban the use of social media top-down runs counter to the principle of subsidiarity. These decisions have to be taken as close as possible to the citizen in the member states. We have to teach our children how to use technology safely, and only then will parents and grandparents be able to sleep soundly.
On behalf of Renew, Stéphanie Yon-Courtin.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame, Messieurs les commissaires européens, imaginez...
Commissioner, please imagine a jungle where every child is left to their own devices without any protection and exposed to all sorts of dangers. That is the digital world we see now. Many children get their first smartphone at 9, first social network at 11. They find pornography, glorification of violence, sexism. They are addicted to likes and doom scrolling. The parents can't do anything. The platforms manipulate every single click, get our kids addicted to earn even more money. So what are we doing? Our response in the European Parliament is setting a harmonized coming-of-age limit for the Internet and a framework for the activities of influencers. It's not a question of just banning things for the sake of it. It's not an option, it's a duty. We need to protect children's interests. It's a question of public health. Children deserve a world without these kinds of dangers, so act, and let's act all together.
Thank you. Thank you, Rapporteur and fellow co-shadows, commissioners. Colleagues, this is a historic vote. A broad majority in this Parliament says enough is enough. We need to ban the addictive personalized recommender systems based on clicks and interaction for children. And the Parliament repeats, we need to ban harmful addictive design for everyone. We will no longer tolerate that big tech companies profit over the demise of our mental health, society and youngsters. We know the harm the online environment brings to kids. Social media are swamps that drag us into a world that promotes radicalization, self-harm or eating disorders. We know screen time is going through the roof, with 1 in 4 children displaying behavioral patterns mirroring smartphone addiction, with huge risks for children's development, attention span and health. We know chat rooms of online video games are too easy a gateway for groomers. We know chatbots have recommended young people to take their own lives. We have the knowledge, and now we need the political will to demand from these big corporations that they make the internet a safe place again. Colleagues, it's up to us. Do we allow these big corporations to continue as they want, or do we take the opportunity of the upcoming Digital Fairness Act to make the internet safe for once and for all? Thank you.
The next speaker on behalf of the left, is Leila Shaibi.
Dear colleagues, as Karl Marx said, nature has a horror of a vacuum, and capitalism has a horror of a lack of profit. We have the web, we have the internet, and this is being transformed into a market. And the idea is to attract attention, create addiction, and rake in profits. And there's an arsenal which there's advertising which is misleading. We've got loot boxes which act like a casino. And then we have this solution, i.e. a coming of age, minimum age, but this is not going to work because you can you click on a VPN and then everybody else has no responsibility. It's big tech who's at fault here, and they're the ones that create the traps. What we need are safe social media, inclusive social media, so that everybody, minor or adult, is safe, because what is toxic for children is toxic for adults as well. We have to do something about the world of influence, and we need to ban these addictive tools, and this has to be part of the Digital Fairness Act. In order to protect our minors, we should not let big tech set the rules. Our responsibility is exactly the opposite. We have to take this in hand and create an internet which protects.
Thank you. The next speaker is Arno Bausemer.
Ja, Frau Vorsitzende.
Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues, guests. I'm sure everyone here in the European Parliament is prepared to support protection of our young people. But how are we going to manage that? The left always say more rules. Data is collected, they're stored, and they're used for control to assess people's actions. That is the back door into a totalitarian surveillance state. The Commission wants to stop young people having access to places like Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat. The contents are going to be monitored or censored. Well, when it's glorification of violence or pornography, that makes sense. But in other areas, these restrictions do not make sense. Every young person should be able to form their own opinion. It's not a question of stopping them from going out on dangerous roads or eating dangerous mushrooms. Parents teach their children not to do these things, and children are not stupid, so they understand it. Sometimes we're not up with the times, but there are quite a lot of real dangers in real life. We need to ensure through education and parenting that we give children an idea of what they can do and can't do. We need to teach children media competence at schools, but total control is not part of the solution. Free access to information is the great strength of the internet. That is a strength for citizens in Europe too. As parents, should we protect our children from the difficulties of life? Yes, but we should do it through parenting and education. Thank you.
After the first round for the political groups, I will close the Catch the Eye and open the blue card. The next speaker is Andreas Schwab.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you, President, Vice President, Commissioner, dear colleagues. It has been quite rightly pointed out that there are things that are allowed, things that are not allowed, and what is not allowed is telling untruths. If you take a look at the own initiative report we're discussing today, we're not introducing any kind of state surveillance. The idea, as the Vice President said in her introduction, what's being offered is that neither the state nor big tech has access to data. The idea is that young people, to a certain extent, independently, can have access to certain platforms on the basis of an age certificate. This is the smart European path, being independent of big tech and independent of state bodies. And I think it's important in this debate to separate what is correct and what is false, because what is also correct and important is that young people spend an average of 4 hours online, which means that they are exposed to risks which for very many young people are just too much. And what we have seen, and this is why we do need a European approach, Vice President, what we have noted is that unfortunately in certain member states where state monitoring works well when it comes to inappropriate content, then it's not always the same in smaller member states. And we want all young people to enjoy the same protection against harmful content. And it's not a joke, because in certain cases it's a personification of suicide.
Laura Bellarin Ceresa.
Según el informe reciente Infancia Digital.
According to a recent report on digital childhood, many children say that they have been bullied or experienced digital violence. When we're looking at 11-year-old children and you're giving them a smartphone, do they really understand the dangers behind the screen? I don't think so. We need to make sure that children know the consequences of the digital world. It's not a neutral or safe world. Children face serious effects, bullying, grooming, sextortion, access to pornography from the age of 10. And this is something that's going around the world. But we can and must act, because technology should be used to serve people, not to serve billionaires in Silicon Valley or Singapore. We need to strike a balance between education and safety. And the responsibility is shared between families and educators, but also the big tech platforms, because their business models are damaging and addictive. And we know that they do that on purpose, because it's not an isolated case. It's a business model which puts profit above well-being, clicks and algorithms above the law. And so we, in this Parliament, send out a clear message to the Commission. We'll voting on this report with a broad majority. Impunity has to end. And it is clear that we need new laws and new tools, which should set a minimum age of 13 to be allowed on social networks and 16. We need parental authority, an end to recommending algorithms or those based on addicting young people. We need to act, and we need to act. It's not just the parents, but also our children. They don't want to have their childhood stolen from them.
Ladies and gentlemen, protecting minors is one of our fundamental responsibilities. The role of the family is irreplaceable in this. The European Commission can coordinate but cannot take over the role of parents, communities and national legislators, especially when market regulation, which is the Commission's job, is the Commission is failing on that. And we see all the risks online for our kids. The TISA member talks about protecting children, while she used to work for a big tech firm which used to promote a world full of addiction online. We should also talk about her party, TISA. They talk about cyber security questions, why they couldn't even safeguard people's data in a simple app. Data leading to data leakage. We want protection for minors online.
Card from Mrs. David. Do you accept it? Yes, please, Mrs. David.
Thank you, colleague. You're speaking of the protection of children while the Hungarian government as propagandists are lying and AI-generated political contents are spread in the social platform and the media by the Hungarian government. Parents and children organizations are complaining, but you don't care what kind of impact this has on children. Who will protect the children from the government of Hungary? And where is the comprehensive online children protection strategy of the government? We don't see it.
Thank you for your question, honorable colleague. It's nice that we are speaking Hungarian in this house. At least people listening in Hungary can really understand what we're saying. You're sitting in a political group led by Manfred Weber, a political group which in the last 15-20 years have opened the doors of Europe to illegal migrants. You cannot take your children to a simple Christmas market and feel safe anywhere in Western Europe. And now you stand up here and talk about protecting the children online when you used to work for a big tech company.
The next speaker is George Piperea.
The protection of children online and offline is built at home in the family. The safety of our children has nothing to do with algorithms. They are safe if we rely on the basic, solid values taught in the family. Responsibility, respect, care for the others, common sense. These are values inculcated by the family. It is the parents who provide a firewall against the dangers on the internet. Our role as lawmakers is limited to legal instruments designed to help assist the parents. It is not our job to tell parents what to do. The platforms must have simple settings. With a single click, the parent should be able to block advertising, restrict clips, deactivate chats with foreigners, or receive real-time notifications when their children access dangerous material. But that's it. This approach otherwise opens the way towards an excessively restrictive control that might bring restrictions even for us adults and turns us all into suspects. It's yet one step towards mass surveillance, not one towards freedom.
Ďakujem pekne, drahá komisia, drahí kolegovia. Juliana.
Yes, thank you very much, President Commissioner. There are 3 young people who are no longer with us. In good faith, they thought they had found a solution to their problem, and they turned to artificial intelligence. You may be aware of this. Juliana was 13 years old, and this was a child who was ignored and left alone, and she is no longer with us. So we are talking about the health of our children. We have to do something. We have to react to the changes that are taking place and the conditions in which our children are growing up. And this is why we want a minimum age of 13 for the access of children to the internet. Our children are individual personalities who are developing, and they need our protection. And they shouldn't be seen as a blank check for economists. Julian, Adam, and Suel have made it clear to us in a very tragic way that we are responsible for them. So let's do something.
Tack, fru talman.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Often more than 6 hours a day. That's how long many of our children sit and look at Zuckerberg's platform and Chinese propaganda. The tech companies try to get us addicted to their content. All too often, hope and hate are out there, but more hate than hope and more lies than truth. The EU is the only actor in this world that can respond to the tech giants. So let's do that. We should dare to set requirements, take back control, ban addictive algorithms, look after people's well-being, put that in the center, rather than the tech giants' right to manipulate us. The future is created today, and it should be created by people, not algorithms. Thank you.
The next speaker is Nikos Papas.
Dear colleagues, today we are going to vote on a report that has to do with one of our major concerns. We need to see how we can safeguard that children can grow up in a world that keeps them safe. Digital spaces are part and parcel of their everyday life, so we need to create a safe environment. However, protecting minors online cannot only rely on technical regulations and solutions. We need a comprehensive pedagogical approach that will teach children to keep themselves safe. And schools have a very important role to play here. Children need to be properly trained and educated in order to understand how algorithms work. We cannot leave platforms to determine what children can see online and how they will shape their worldview. We need to safeguard the right of each child to grow up in a safe digital environment. Thank you.
Speaker is Eva Zająkowska-Hernik.
Dear colleagues, this is another silly resolution which is going to lead to a dead piece of legislation. You're talking about freedom on the internet, sovereignty of countries. You're talking about protection, but there's only one aim and target of this, i.e. deeper surveillance of citizens. An age verification means that even more sensitive data is going to be collected, identity theft and greater control over our lives. Access to the internet and social media is a decision that has to be taken and depends on parents. We bring up our children, and it is we that have responsibility for our children. The European Union cannot replace parents. This resolution shows the total lack of contact with the reality. It wants to introduce bans, and the children will get around it more quickly than the regulation comes into life. So the reply is simple. This is not a question of protection, but a further attempt at centralization. You are not able to, you're trying to limit access to internet, and you're trying to do this through this resolution. We're going to defend freedom on the internet and the sacred right of parents to bring up their own children. Never are we going to give up parentship into the hands of European bureaucrats. Thank you.
There's a blue card, there's a blue card from Evin Inchir. Do you accept it?
1 minute. I will bring Polish translation. I will find my language. Okay.
Thank you very much, colleague, for taking the question. First and foremost, you claim that you are on the side of the children. You claim that the parents should have the main responsibility. And nobody is talking about depriving parents their parenthood. But parents cannot monitor children 24/7. And social media platform is the modern times of squares, even children's rooms, streets. How do you intend to ensure that children are not harmed by social media platforms when the parents cannot be there? To not do anything means harming children.
You have just said that parents are not in a position to be able to monitor their children 24 hours a day. The European Union should not have the right to do this, i.e. to monitor and to observe children 24 hours a day. This is the responsibility of parents to look after the safety of their children, and we're not going to allow European Union to have greater competences in order to be able to monitor and control our children. They want to introduce this piece of legislation in order to be able to control what is published on the internet or not. This is the problem. You're not looking after the good of children. What you want is control of the internet and content that is appearing on the internet, and we don't agree with that.
I would like to repeat the rules for blue card: 1 minute question, 1 minute answer, and the possibility to ask an additional question. So, Mrs. Inchir, Mrs. Sajonkowska, there is the possibility for a repetition again. No. Yeah, but she has to accept. Katerina Konečná.
Děkuji, paní předsedající, vážená paní komisařko.
President, Commissioner, protection of minors online has been something that the Commission and some member states have abused in order to implement certain policies. It should be something that brings us together, but not an excuse to prevent anonymity or gather data from online. Protecting minors can be done from a number of angles, and the Commission has not solved the problem. The internet, of course, has to respect certain laws, but the issue of biometric data is not being handled in a way that respects privacy, confidentiality, or prevents certain risks. So this is something that we need to reject. We need to not do more harm than good.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, President, Vice President, Commissioner. Digitalization obviously is part of our lives, but this is like a tsunami that is impregnating everything. And in the case of young people, it's going even further. It's their world, it forms part of their identity, and it's universal. And I don't know anybody who does not use digital tools in all sorts of fields, and there are very many benefits to this. But it does not come without risks. So there are certain risks, certain problems. We've been talking about these, and we know that the consequences of them can be dreadful for children. Self-harm, food disorders, pornography, all sorts of things. The digital world in which our children are growing up and have grown up may appear inoffensive, but in certain cases is not at all. So what we have to do is provide, should we overprotect, deprive them of their world, or allow them to use it without limits? There is a third way between the two of these: order, consensus, and examples. And I think the idea is obviously to accompany our children and to educate them along the path which allows them to be able to fully use the opportunities but be aware of the risks. And the digital world is no exception to this. And I very much hope that the report will be adopted tomorrow with a broad majority, and this report is heading in this way. It's only by, with parents, platforms, and other actors acting on this hand in hand, where things will be safer. We want one standard, not 27, because protection of minors is a shared responsibility, a responsibility on the part of all of us. Nobody wants to replace parents, but algorithms might just manage to do that.
Speaker is Katharina Barley.
Herzlichen Dank. Jedes Eltern.
Thank you very much. Well, every parent says, oh, don't go with strangers. But when we give them a mobile phone or a tablet, endless numbers of strangers get into their world, and no parent can control that. And for many of these actors, children's well-being is irrelevant. Click this, buy that, you're too fat, here's how to build a bomb. That's what a 15-year-old sees on their phone. The consequence for young children today is suicide, depression, attention problems, and we have to do something about this. We need to have better media competence for children, parents, and schools. We need to ensure that for children and adults, the most dangerous practices are banned. We need to ensure that there is a minimum age. All other addictive substances are subject to minimum ages. Social networks should be the same. Yes, we need a Digital Fairness Act to ensure that the internet is a safe place for our children and young people.
Speaker is Elisabeth Dieringer.
Ja, Kinder und
yes. Protection of children and young people in our daily life should be at the heart of our debates and our considerations. And all of this without impinging on our freedom. The focus should obviously remain with the parents, and it's the parents who should be responsible for looking after children and supervising children. And this is what makes me think very carefully about this, and to have this proposal for centralized control. And I'm wondering about the good intentions behind this proposal, and I'm doubting them. If we have a centralized EU tool which should decide as to whether citizens can access to information or not, leaves a bit of an unpleasant taste, because, well, we've already addressed the various regulatory consequences, and we have always stressed that it is the parents that should continue to be in control of this, but we haven't been, we've been ignored.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. We all want to protect our young people, minors, children. But some people want to do that by substituting member states, by additional bureaucracy. Some people want to protect them by trying to gag people. We are very clear. We want to work with families. Families have to remain at the heart of our society, and that's why we want to encourage member states to develop parental control systems and ask this from digital platforms as well, because you can't replace the key role that families have to play. And nor can we replace member states who also have a fundamental role to play. They can't give up their sovereignty to people who want to remove it or cancel it. We want more clarity, but fewer laws that will take over sovereignty from our member states.
I will speak Bulgarian. Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues, yes, action is needed against the growing problem of addictive behavior patterns, but this action should be well thought out and targeted. The proposed ban on the use of social networks by children aged 13 to 16 without parental permission is not a measure of this kind. What are we going to do? A copy of the child's birth certificate or a copy of the parent's identity card? And at the same time, what are we achieving? A 15-year-old child took her own life in France 4 years ago because of the content she was exposed to. According to paragraph 28 of this report, responsibility falls solely on the parents because until the age of 16 and for the 13 to 16 years of age range, the responsibility lies with the parents who have allowed earlier access. The role of parents is undoubtedly very important, but blanket bans have never had a positive effect. Let us fight harmful and dangerous content and manipulative algorithms.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Commissioner, colleagues, the attention economy has decided to make our children into guinea pigs, and they're using platforms and algorithms that pursue our children, but all of us, in fact, to break into our brains and find out what our emotions are. They are trading in our most intimate feelings. Now, if you leave all of this on the shoulders of the parents and families to deal with these toxic algorithms, I don't think that's enough. That leaves a risk open, the risk of taking responsibility off the shoulders of those who really are guilty parties here, the companies and the algorithms. In the European Union, if we want to really protect our children, we have to take back control over the algorithms. So, Madam President, beyond the text we'll be voting on tomorrow, we need to move away from this idea of deregulating further with the digital omnibus, for example, which wants to take burdens away from companies. No, we need to do the job of protecting us from these international companies.
The mental and social skills of our children is in free fall, and their psychological development is lagging behind since they spend most of their time in smart devices. Today, reading and writing is taught to kids in the first grade who had not learned to speak in the first place. Zombie generations would grow up if you don't take action now. Parents and teachers should be enlightened. According to experts, below 14, kids should not be given smartphones. Instead, social game plays and paper-based learning should be used to develop their skills and nervous systems. But this is a member state responsibility, and member states should do this. Since big tech companies abuse their influence over children and thus generate immense profits, they should take responsibility in banning ads directed to children and in cutting addictive algorithms, and they should be made responsible to subject themselves to member state regulations.
Lefteris Nicolaou Alavanos.
The addiction of children to social media is a real problem its causes is the fact that there are difficulties for the families. We have commercialization in every aspect of society and the wrong models. The application of DSA, DMA and the other pieces of legislation does not deal with the problem because they want to protect EU tech monopolies against their competition with US and Chinese monopolies. In order for them to have profits, they need to have these algorithms, the addictive systems, in order to be able to make kids addicted. Now, the kids are preferred targets for those conglomerates because they have no experience and no judgment. Your proposals, like the ones that the Greek government took, always try to say that the problem will be solved with individual responsibility. The solution is to fight for the needs of children and teenagers and smash capitalist barbarism.
Regina Doherty.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, as a parent, you can be sure that the recent data showing that more and more young people are turning to chatbots for friendship really stops me in my tracks. AI chatbots are perfectly mimicking the predatory behaviour of human groomers with absolutely devastating outcomes. And like most parents, my head tells me that I know about all of the opportunities that the internet gives, but my heart tells me it can be a real source of danger and harm for our children. And quite frankly, I think parents have had enough. I'm really tired of hearing stories about children exposed to things that no child should ever see. And I genuinely dread to think how easy it can be for an innocent child to come across adult content, extreme violence or targeted manipulative content. I'm tired of childhoods being ruined, of young people's mental health being damaged and criminals getting away unpunished. And I'm tired of parents feeling like we're left to fight this battle all on our own. With this report, we are setting clear expectations, and it's time for the Commission, Member States and platforms to enforce them. This is Europe saying no more. If a company put children's lives at risk in the real world, we'd shut them down. Online platforms should face exactly the same responsibility and exactly the same consequences. We've had enough of weak enforcement, weak rules and far too little responsibility. Whether it's under 16s on social media without proper parental control, addictive design keeping children hooked for hours, or AI bots preying on our children's fears and insecurities, we need real age checks, real safeguards and real consequences. And we absolutely must ensure that we're giving parents and children the resources and the information that they require to tackle this issue effectively. Thank you.
The next speaker is Biljana Borzan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do the young live today? Research shows there is a huge increase of youth who describe themselves as unhappy. Statistics show that self-infliction of pain is very often, as is suicide. This is a social crisis. As many as half of our youth are constantly online and only spending half an hour less daily shows improvement in mental capacities. But the users have to stay online as long as possible because of profit. There are no scruples. Therefore, we want to have the age restriction set at 13 years of age, and addictive design should be prohibited. We have heard a lot of things about parents having to control their children. But dear colleagues, let us ask ourselves who is controlling our children while we are working here throughout the day. The world has changed and we need to help parents to protect their children. Thank you.
Maria Vicek.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Commissioner, I will speak in Hungarian. When
we talk about online risks, we often mention cyberbullying, addictive games, and excessive screen time, and seem to forget about equally harmful risks such as early exposure to sexual content, to radical religious or gender ideology, which they are simply not able to process due to their age. Big tech platforms seem incapable of managing these risks on their own, so it's right that we talk about this here in this House. Hungary's position on the role of parents is clear. They have a primary and irreplaceable role in taking decisions on children's development, offline and online. Legislating on this is primarily a member state or national competence. Hungary is committed to protecting children. We adopted a strategy on this, a digital strategy on curbing online aggression. So we support every European initiative which seeks to reinforce national systems, acknowledge the parents' role, and better protect our children online. Thank you.
There is a blue card from Mrs. David. Do you accept it?
Of course.
Köszönöm szépen, kedves képviselőtárs.
Thank you, colleague. Because your fellow party member did not respond to my question about children protection, which is not surprising because your party is not great in that, I would pose the same question to you. Fidesz and its propagandists are spreading AI-generated lies and political ads and dangerous contents on the internet. The NGOs protecting children are complaining, but you don't react. Where is the online strategy protecting children by the Hungarian government? We don't see it.
Thank you for your question. I am not unprepared. I expected your question. I have to... These are unfounded allegations because Hungary has adopted the most comprehensive and strictest family protection and child protection systems. We have managed to curb pedophile crime, and we have introduced targeted social measures which have clearly improved the situation of children. My question to you is the following. Your party, TISA, what is your position on woke ideology, which is an equally big risk? Can you please reply? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lara Magoni.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. Protecting minors online is a responsibility that we cannot ignore. Just in Italy, in 2024, we saw a 90% increase in crimes against minors online. If you have platforms, it means anyone can get on them through age verification mechanisms. This can be restricted, but it should be left up to member states to take account of their specific cultural and legal situation. But technology is not enough. Today, only 46% of parents feel that they are properly prepared to protect their own children online. We need digital literacy, simple tools, and intuitive parental control. This can really make a difference, and we cannot allow children to be exploited for commercial ends. Also, including being exploited by parents to get disability or other advantages. Protecting children online means protecting their future. It's our responsibility to protect our children.
Speaker is Sophie Wilmès.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner McGrath.
Well, as a mother, I'm always very worried about what's going around on the social networks. And as a mother, I warn my children. I warn them because that's my duty to protect them. But having said that, I feel like I'm all on my own. When my kids are on the social networks, they're in a different world, a world that I don't always have access to. And that is why we're asking for systems that can protect our children when we are not there. Well, in everyday life, we need to have clear, temporary rules that will protect them until they come of age. Rules that can protect them, to protect them physical, cognitive, and emotional development. We have rules in other parts of life, so we need to do exactly the same for the internet and online space. So we'll be voting in favour tomorrow, but I have a regret, which is that we did not set 15 years as a minimum age. But I think that we cannot continue to allow young people to be left to their own devices on the networks.
Fernandez.
Gracias, presidente.
Thank you, President. I've listened to colleagues, and of course we want to protect children, but who from? From the internet or from people in this room? I have a document here talking about verification of age that will be automatic, checking against the law. Quite honestly, if you can't protect your children, it doesn't mean that you are allowed to try to keep watch over hours. You talk about addictive algorithms, but how can you come and talk about that here? You have half of the continent addicted to your propaganda. Do you know how easy it would be to get round all of these legal initiatives here? Technology is far ahead of anything this chamber can do. With Chat GPT, we can access any database, regardless of anything that you do here. And so I think a lot of the European legislators here don't understand that. If you want to protect children here, we need to have digital literacy. We can't treat the internet as if it's a risk.
Puesto.
Of course, I'll accept.
I'll speak in Portuguese. Yeah. O Sr. Deputado é que parece.
Now, it seems you don't actually understand either parents or children. If you understood them, you'd understood that the parents are concerned about access to the social networks. It reduces the intellectual capacity and cognitive development of their children. You're trying to draw some kind of artificial divide between right and left, but no, you don't want to protect young people, you want to protect your political agenda. Protecting young people through age limits and digital education, that's going to make them put them in a better position. Because in the past, would we have stopped alcohol or cigarette consumption? As parents, we have a common duty to educate our children better.
Muchísimas gracias por su pregunta.
Well, thank you for the question. If people are concerned about what's being done on the right, I think we're all part of the same moral framework of this continent. Colleague, people from your group are saying that parents aren't able to keep a check on their children 24 hours a day. What does that mean? The Commission should come and look after their children 24 hours a day when parents can't manage. Or that the Spanish left should be act as parents. You're authoritarian, you're hypocrites. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to defend the internet for this purpose. Thank you.
Is Magdalena Adamovich.
Szanowna Pani
President, Commissioner, our children spend over 6 hours a day on the internet, and there is content there that is a threat to them. Violence, pornography, and video clips encouraging them to self-harm. And they're either there with their peers or with strangers, and they're encouraged to have conversations with pedophiles who want to exploit them, abuse them sexually. And obviously, this 9 out of 10 Europeans want safety for their children on the internet. And so we need some kind of tool that is going to put an end to harmful content or prevent children from seeing it. And what we need is that the platforms, internet platforms, are safe for young people. So age verification is an absolute minimum. And it's time that platforms assume responsibility. We don't want to wait another minute, because every further minute and delay is a further threat for our children. If we cannot protect our children on the internet, then in the natural world it's us as adults that are going to be responsible for their harm. Long life trauma And this is why I very much urge that we have to act here and now.
The next speaker is Sandro Ruotolo.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. Well, it should be parents, not algorithms, that bring up our children. Mrs. von der Leyen said that. But in reality, 97% of young people use the internet every single day, and 1 in 4 is addicted to their smartphones. For children between 11 and 14, many spend more than 9 hours a day online. While they're online, they face cyberbullying, pornography, hate contact, betting, all sorts of stuff. You can't blame the kids or the families. It's our responsibility because we have acted too late. And these platforms are using manipulative technologies. We need to set age limits. Now, sometimes we need to have the courage to say no. First of all, we need to protect young people. We cannot simply send a generation to be brought up by the lords of big tech. The damage will be irreversible.
Müller. Sorry, Nikola Bartuszek. Sorry.
Dear colleagues, children are the most vulnerable group in our society. And even though we have made the physical world safer for them, we are failing in the online world. We clearly see how constant online exposure is harming young people. But what is the solution? Total surveillance around the clock? Certainly not. Even if it were possible, it wouldn't help the generation already exposed to it. Chat control? Absolutely not. Sacrificing privacy, a fundamental pillar of modern Europe, will not make children safer. The realistic and healthy solution is education, communication, and creating phone-free zones in schools. Some schools in some cities and countries already apply such rules, and I applaud them. Allowing children and teenagers to simply be children, to move, play, talk, argue, laugh, experiment, and sometimes even stumble. This is far healthier than watching them drift through their most formative years as iPhone zombies. We want to protect children, but without creating a system that monitors everyone online.
Ms. Bartuszek, there is a blue card from Mrs. Glavak. Do you accept it?
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Hvala vam lijepa, ali odgovorite mi.
Thank you very much. But could you please tell me, how do you plan to prevent what is happening every second on encoded online platforms where videos or photographies of sexual exploitation of children is being shared? Many children from schools have met in person with people who they've met for the first time online. They certainly do not have their parents' approval. Europol has also detected 2,000 links to terrorist and extremist content directed towards minors who are planned target. How would you deal with this?
I allow myself to answer in Czech. Samozřejmě musíme podporovat naše děti.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, we do have to support our children and we have to protect them in the online world because the risks and threats are far greater than in the offline world. But on the other hand, it is hardly possible to control every single message, every single piece of information. What we have to do is not spy on our citizens. We have to communicate, we have to bring up our children, we have to educate them, and we have to show our citizens just what risks and dangers are lurking on the internet. And the way we should be taking is not to be spies.
Szanowni Państwo, ochrona dzieci w internecie jest oczywiście jednym z najpoważniejszych zadań,
Yes, thank you very much. Protecting children online is one of the most important tasks that we have to undertake as politicians. We're talking here about social media. There are a lot of risks and dangers. It can be very addictive. So we know that internet is everywhere, and this whole idea of age verification and in recognising what people's identity is, we need to look at what access children have. And yes, platforms need to come up with instruments to ensure that parents can have a certain degree of control. We need to come up with technical solutions to make that possible. Social media, the platforms, they have to shoulder this technical responsibility, and they need to come up with these instruments. They need to protect children against inappropriate content. But the anonymity on the internet, that shouldn't be lifted, and that is what would happen with your proposal.
Commissioner, friends. 97% of young people are online every day, and for many teenagers that means long hours on screens that never leave their hands. And we also know that what happens behind those screens too often goes unnoticed by parents. Predators slip into children's lives through private chats and group messages, and algorithms are designed to capture our attention, not to protect the user, constantly pushing more extreme or sexualized content. In games that appear harmless, loot boxes are hidden that mimic casino mechanics, often involving real money. But this is not bad parenting, but a business model built on behavioural psychology and dark patterns. If we're serious about protecting minors, we need age-appropriate design, secure age checks, restrictions on addictive features and loot boxes, and strong enforcement of EU rules. And if we want to strengthen parents' confidence, we must approve this resolution and enforce it using all the tools at our disposal. Thank you.
Ďakujem, pani predsednička. Vážené dámy a páni, už väčšina z nás...
Thank you very much, President, ladies and gentlemen. All of us here are dependent on the internet and modern technologies. I think, as far as I can see, all of us are looking at our smartphones, and we adults know what is harmful, but it's a real problem with children. The digital world is growing faster than our rules. We can protect our children by telling them to do certain things out on the street, but we also need to protect them online. There is a lot of manipulative content online, a lot of things that are harmful to children. So there are two things we must do. Firstly, we need to ensure that we implement EU rules. Platforms must be held accountable, not just in terms of deleting things, but also in terms of what they disseminate. Then, secondly, we need to ensure that we teach children to understand what is harmful. And then thirdly, we need to avoid children being exploited for commercial reasons and becoming targets of advertising.
Dimitris Tsiodras.
Thank you. Children are spending more and more time staring at the screen because digital media for them is a very important way of communicating. But they see content they shouldn't, and this has dreadful consequences for their mental health. Parents cannot control their children, so there is no time to lose. We need more radical measures at the European level. For example, the digital coming-of-age identity card, so no one under the age of 13 should have access to social media. And for the ages between 13 to 16, only after parental leave. We also need to have an age verification system and more initiatives to strengthen the skills of parents and teachers. But we have to be sincere. It's companies that have are mostly to blame, because you shouldn't use these platforms as a fig leaf for responsibility to be shown onto parents and teachers.
I have my own fan base, dear Speaker. Dear Commissioner, kära kollegor.
Dear colleagues,
this is an important debate today. Hopefully, it will lead to us making a historic decision tomorrow, a historic decision that will take us in the right direction and where we protect our children and young people online and in social media. Just over a year ago, I was here present at my first debate in the EU Parliament, and I discussed this very topic. Far too many children suffer online and get stuck in endless scrolling in front of their screens. I'm talking about my own children and many other children out there who feel worried about the world that they face in their phones. I'm talking about the powerlessness that you feel as a parent when you're unable to protect them. Our children's lives should not be governed by for-profit algorithms generated in Silicon Valley or Beijing. That's why I've worked hard with my party, and this was one of our promises in our electoral campaign about taking back control and imposing age limits for social media. Parents have a big responsibility, but we cannot stand alone against the major tech companies. Our children are not machines for profit. Thank you.
La protection des mineurs en ligne doit être...
Protecting children online must be our priority. With this resolution, the European Union is heading in the right direction, but it's only a start. But we must go further in order to protect our children, obliging platforms to neutralise the content of radical propaganda. Platforms with their algorithms and their commercial logic allow manipulative content, addictive content, and sometimes dangerous content. We have radical ideologies, sometimes religious, political or sectarian, and they all find fertile breeding ground there. The figures in France on radicalization, Islamic radicalization in particular, are alarming. And it's not just about pointing the finger at a community, it's about opening our eyes to a reality. Radicalization makes progress where the state, schools and social support are on the back foot. We cannot be taking half-hearted measures. The fight against Islamism must be a national and European priority with greater resources, more controls in place and clear political will. We need to protect our children, our national cohesion and the values which make France and Europe. We must act stringently, clearly and right now.
Next speaker is Adrian Georgia Axinia.
The protection of minors online is not only a noble objective, but also a necessity for the emotional health of our children. If we lose this battle against addiction and unhealthy practices, the future will become dystopic. I would have liked to vote for a report that protects children, but the surprise is that the rapporteur attacks the sovereignty of the member states and paves the ground for future cyber attacks. Reading the report, it's clear that the silver bullet represented by the Digital Services Act seems to have missed the target. The imposed measures are either useless or easy to circumvent. So the focus of DSA has shifted towards limiting the freedom of impression. It is toxic to create a so-called group of experts coordinated by Ursula von der Leyen, and that this structure establishes rules for online platforms without going through Parliament. In the end, I would like to draw the attention on some bad practices in Romania. My party, AUR, tried to ban minors' access to porn sites using the French model, but the power in Bucharest opposed this undertaking.
Is Ivan Verhofstadt.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, President. For too long, children have been left to their own devices online. They have been exposed to dangerous content and to systems that are developed to make them addicted and mass exploitation of their personal data. This text finally sets out clear rules, harmonised age limits at 16 and greater protection for the under-13s, but also an end to targeted advertising and the most addictive functionalities. And we're doing this by putting in place a verification system which will respect people's privacy, which is important, but also ensuring that platforms and those in charge of them can be held to account if there is a repeated failure to act. The dangers are great because at 10, 13, 16 or 18, it makes a difference. It's not down to the tech giants to dictate our laws. What is banned in real life must also be banned online. This is a clear message for Europe, for our citizens and for our children.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dirk Gotting.
Voorzitter.
Thank you very much, President. We are living in the biggest social experiment in modern history, and essentially it's our children that are paying the penalty for it. And we're talking here about the influence that algorithms and social media have on their development. Neuro researchers and psychologists have been sounding the alarm for a long time. The mental well-being of our children is under an awful lot of pressure. Plenty of parents are asking for help. These systems are not neutral. They are developed to strengthen emotions and keep us captive. Essentially, children are being enslaved to these platforms. You look at what these American and Chinese companies are doing, and look what's happening with the collection of all of that data. These untested substances, if they are in our children's food, then we do something about it. And here we're dealing with algorithms that are feeding our children. And I think it's high time that we have a minimum age for social media, and we should be banning infinite scrolling, and we should make sure that the platforms actually shoulder responsibility for the crimes and the like that go on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth Grossman. Microphone for the speaker, please.
Das Mikro, bitte.
A microphone, please.
Now it is working.
Ja. Findet in der digitalen Welt statt. Endloses Scrolling.
In the digital world, we see endless scrolling, addictive and harmful content. It is demonstrably causing anxiety, sleep problems, learning difficulties, aggression, and further mental problems. Girls are often affected by feelings of lack of self-worth, unrealistic ideals of beauty. Boys are often the targets of violence and radicalization with terrible consequences. So life-threatening tests of courage, violence, or even gun attacks in schools of the kind that we've seen in my own hometown of Grazia. So the digital world can be a very dangerous place. Age limits are one option for protecting children and ensuring that parents are supported when they exercise parental responsibility. Business models which are at the cost of our children should be banned both online and offline. This initiative report is a clear mandate to the Commission to protect our children.
Speaker is Marie Douchy.
Yes, this is urgent. China sells dolls of a pornographic nature, and we're seeing dangerous addiction developing. Everyone understands that we need to act, but one important question remains. Who decides? Brussels or member states, families, parents? 16 years ago, we created digital legislation which was imposed in a centralized fashion. We see a number of risks with that. We see the risk of a generalized surveillance tool and a threat to the sovereignty of states and their educational choices. Finally, the sidesweeping of the role of parents. For us, priorities are clear. We must protect minors. This must happen through strengthening parental controls, making platforms responsible, and fighting against those tendencies which hold our children hostage. We must not attack our freedoms and our sovereignty. Our responsibility is simple. We need to protect our children now and without waiting.
Next speaker is Marcos Quarta.
Thank you, President. We all agree that minors must be protected online. But we cannot use this as reason to create a central system that tells everyone how young people should access the digital world. This problem is complex. A single European solution could become even more complicated and intrusive. A fixed digital age or strict automatic tools cannot replace the role of parents, teachers, and adults. Limiting access might help, but is not enough. Real protection comes from guidance, education, and strong support for families. If we want a safer digital online space, we must start from people, not from one uniform system. We need balance, not more distance between the rules and everyday life. Protecting minors is not about technology alone. It is about responsibility and trust. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anna-Maja Henriksson.
Värderade talman, kommissionär.
President, Commissioner, our most valuable resource is our children, our young people. They need to be able to grow up safely online too. Today, that is not the case. Many are feeling unwell mentally because of things they've experienced online. Our responsibility as adults and our responsibility as the EU is to act now. All the alarm bells are ringing. This is a new public health problem which is affecting our children, our youngsters. That is why the platforms need to be held more accountable. We have algorithms based on creating addiction in children. They must be combated effectively. Children and young people being dependent on, addicted to social media may be the most significant reason for increased ill health amongst young people. That is a public health problem. We need to put children's health first and platforms second.
Madam President, Commissioner, it is indeed valuable to hold debates and organise numerous events in this Parliament on the protections of minors online. These discussions help raise awareness. But awareness is not enough. Children cannot be protected by speeches only. And that is why, from the committee responsible for online protection of minors, data protection, law enforcement and judicial cooperation, the LIBE Committee, I would like to deliver a clear call to action, a call to all actors, to all stakeholders. The situation of children in the online environment is seriously deteriorating on all counts, not only CSAM. Exposure to pornography, addictions, betting, self-harm, recruitment by organised crime. Well, we must work together with a strong sense of responsibility and determination and make the most of our respective positions and roles in the legislative process. Every minute we lose without producing effective legislation, every excuse we hear for not taking action means more children harmed, more lives shattered, more lives ruined. Thank you.
The next speaker is Pierre Jouvet.
minutes.
12 minutes. That is the time it takes a teenager on TikTok to see videos on depression, self-harm or suicide. Our children face the worst, and some people would like to just leave it. Based on an uninterrupted flow of extreme content with addictive design, aggressive marketing, this is a sordid business, and it has enabled TikTok to generate $39 billion in profits in 2024. But above all, it has led to the suicide of Marie, Charlize, Penelope, Clément, and so many others. All of them were children. We must protect our children from these attacks. Yes, and we should put in place prevention, raise awareness among parents, but we also have to be absolutely stringent with these platforms. What is the worth of a parent's common sense in the face of a tech giant and its mad algorithm? Our market is not for sale. Our children are not for sale, and they should not be used as business models for the digital Far West that we have before us.
The next speaker is Małgorzata Gosiewska.
Internet stał się miejscem hejtu, propagowania.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the internet you've got hate speech, there's gender ideology that's being pushed, and this is causing a disruption in children's growth. It's in families. That's where we have the fundamental values, and we need to bring up barriers to protect them. We need to protect children against inappropriate content. But essentially, the biggest ally that we have in all of this is parents. It's adults. We need to know what is endangering children. We need to be able to protect them. And what's clear is that children should not be the victims of dirty political campaigning, and that was the case in the most recent presidential elections. Those that support the current government, they attack the children of the leader of the opposition, and this really goes completely against the rules of engagement that we have in politics. This was the initiative of the Polish First Lady. It was very important. She actually set up a foundation to protect children from inappropriate content online. We need to protect children, but we need to do this at a national level. And I am against.
Speaker is Maria Grappini.
Madam President, Commissioner, dear colleagues, we are debating an essential report for the future of our planet, for the future of Europe. How can we say that the responsibility for protecting minors in the online environment belongs only to the parents? We haven't excluded the importance of education, the importance of parents in this report, but democracy is based on rules. The message of this report was the following. We, the member states, need to find mechanisms so that platforms limit the right of minors to certain information that is not age appropriate. Children harm themselves. They commit suicide. Recently, a boy killed his sister. So these are misleading platforms. The interfaces are misleading. Dear colleagues, I'm happy that we have a large majority here. For us, the future of Europe lies in the protection of minors. And together, we, the parents, the educational system, need to regulate this environment so that minors do not have access to things that are not appropriate for them.
Thank you very much, President. Protecting minors online is a responsibility that we all need to shoulder, but we need to be realistic in how we deal with this. The report has some constructive elements, but generally speaking, in the digital age and the European verification systems, essentially there is a risk that this becomes a tracing system, and it will track minors, and it also undermines national sovereignty. And then you also have product design, video games, and functions of platforms. It's disproportionate. That's what it is. Protecting minors should not mean substituting families or getting round national competencies. It means adopting efficient solutions to grow a digital culture amongst parents and enable them to use pre-existing instruments to protect their children. To ensure a secure digital environment, we need a Europe which guides without imposing, which protects without controlling. Only in this way will we be able to shoulder this responsibility. Thank you.
Is Evin Insir.
Colleagues, the digital world cannot continue to be a lawless Wild West. Today, criminal networks and organized crime, terrorists are using social media to target and groom children into criminality and terrorism. Many young people are subject to sexual violence, and daily children are threatened and humiliated online. This crushes young lives and weakens our societies. It is crucial that we have safety online. Digital age verification is an important tool. There is no magic bullet, but in combination with digital competence for young people and cooperation with platforms, we can create a much safer digital environment. Today, the online platforms are our modern day streets and squares. That's why we need real responsibility and accountability. Children's safety must never be at the goodwill of big tech. The far right here is kowtowing to tech giants, but we want to protect our children. Each child deserves safety both online and offline.
Blue card from Mr. Oliveira. Do you accept
Absolutely.
it? Mr. Oliveira, please.
Thank you, President. Madam Insir, you mentioned the need to introduce limits. The speaker repeats himself. You mentioned the need to introduce limits when it comes to how young people access online resources, age limits and verification criteria. My question is, do you feel that these solutions should also go hand in hand with requirements for privacy and the safety of young people? Or should these age restrictions be imposed regardless of any other restrictions?
Of course, very important question. As we can do offline, we should also be able to do online to safeguard privacy and integrity at the same time as we combat crimes and prevent harmful exposure that our children are exposed to. So if we can do it offline, we should be able to do it online also. There is something called safeguards, and we need to have safeguards place regardless of whatever tools we use online. So I'm very much convinced that we should be able to ensure that our children can grow up in safety and security online as they do offline, because online world is also the real world. Do not forget that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mark Angel.
Dear President, Commissioner and colleagues, our youth is growing up fully immersed in the digital world, a world full of promise and opportunities that shapes and molds them, yet does not have their safety, health and well-being in mind. And we see the tragic consequences: cyberbullying, self-harm, mental health problems, and yes, suicide. And this must stop. Why would we put our children at the mercy of algorithms that operate in the dark and are accountable to no one but their masters in Silicon Valley and China, that monetize our children's attention? Parents cannot fight against big tech alone. Platforms and online services must bear the primary responsibility to ensure that their services are safe. And therefore, as S&D, we call for legislation that guarantees age-appropriate design and safety by design. We need a Digital Fairness Act that addresses targeted advertising, influencer marketing, addictive design and dark patterns. We need age limits and age verification mechanisms. Finally, let's also give young Europeans a voice in designing and regulating the spaces that define their presence and their future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Brando Benifei.
Thank you very much, President. What is the Italian right doing? They want to try and make sure that people don't learn about emotions at school, and then here they say that we should not limit social networks because they don't want to rock the boat with some big digital company. But let's talk seriously here. 42%. That is the number of Italian minors who have spoken to a chatbot when they felt anxious or sad. Not a friend, not a parent, an algorithm. This Save the Children data tells us everything about how serious the situation is today. Platforms provoke addiction. They amplify the fragility of our young people. They are the system, and our young people are paying for it. We need strong European rules. We need age verification. We need common minimum age. We need to fight against addiction. If you are doubting that we need rules, then look at our young people. The European Parliament needs to choose which side it's on.
Is Maria Guzenina.
Dear Chair, I will speak in Finnish. Arvoisa puhemies.
President, the thing or things that are not acceptable in real world should not be acceptable online either. And the things that are illegal in the real world should be illegal online as well. At the moment, algorithms guide our children to dark alleys. Cyberbullying is a part of their everyday life, and chatbots might even encourage them to self-harm. And with just one click, a child can have access to harmful content, things that are dangerous to their mental health. According to surveys, 1 in 10 young people is suffering from harmful online content. They have anxiety, sleep deprivation,
difficulty to concentrate. They might be addicted to YouTube or something else. And us politicians must now come up with guidelines and policies that can protect young people. Protecting young people and children should be the priority of us all and of the platforms as well. It takes a village. The responsibility is ours, it's of the communities and us politicians as well.
The next speaker is Marina Kaljurand.
Lugupeetud president.
President, ladies and gentlemen, our duty is to protect our children in the real world as well as on the internet, and not only with speeches and with slogans, but with our acts, listening to our children, listening to the representative organizations. And this is why I do not recommend it sensible to come up with the EU-wide digital minimum age or a complete overall social media ban. This will lead to discrimination, and the social media ban is not something that's going to actually stop our children from accessing social media. If we really want to protect our children, we must start with acting on the Digital Services Act. Also, we need to increase the awareness with the parents, and I'm looking forward to proposals from the Commission that do not discriminate against children. Only in this way we can guarantee the protection of minors on the internet. Thank you.
Aguilar.
Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you, President, Commissioner McGrath, and Rapporteur Schaldemose. There is a clear demand from people, and the Parliament has to respond. EU has to respond. Article 24 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights obliges us to protect children, but the legal base is also the same legal base that has enabled us to regulate the business model of big tech. We have addictive algorithms which are subjecting young people to terrible harm. Whatever parents do, mental health problems, emotional problems, eating disorders, even self-harm, and it is therefore a duty to intervene, in particular when it comes to dark patterns, the indiscriminate exposure to pornography, violence, recruitment to criminal gangs, or we have sexual abuse online. And I think that the challenge is really age verification. The EU needs to impose order. We have these ideas of thresholds at 13 and 16, but it is only the EU that can really come up with a response to this challenge, ensuring that young people are not exposed to risks which are very much beyond what parents can do as part of parent responsibility. It's a role for the European legislator. Thank you.
As we are very late in the time, I give the floor to Hannes Heide. Please accept that we don't have to accept blue cards anymore.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. When we're talking here about the protection of minors online, we're talking about the future of our children. We are talking about young people who are curious but also fragile. Of course, we're living in a digital world which makes opportunities, but also there's danger hiding around the corner. We need to look at what the children need. They need support and they need education. Education is the key if we really want to protect young people. We need to develop digital skills at school as well as critical thinking. And we need to make sure that we can support children. The issue of cyberbullying is something that we need to tackle. Young people can become very isolated, and this can be life-threatening. And this leaves tracks. That we need more protection. We need more psychologists in schools. We need to make sure that we have a safe environment for children. Yes, we need age verification, and we need platforms to shoulder their responsibilities. But the best protection is a young people who knows who they can speak to, knows where they can provide support, and is not left to their own devices. Thank you.
Now we start with the Catch the Eye, and the first speaker on Catch the Eye is Nina Carberry.
Thank you, Madam President. Children and teenagers spend on average of 4 to 5 hours per day on social media. Cyberbullying, pornography, self-harm, addictive algorithms and infinite scroll, all available in just one swipe. And all it takes is for a young person to tick a box saying, yes, I'm 13. And they have an instant access to adult content. Social media companies have failed to self-regulate. This is where the EU needs to step in. We need to build on the work of the Digital Services Act and make an online age verification mandatory for accessing social media platforms. There are too many loopholes in the current system, and today's report goes a long way in identifying the outstanding issues. But now, let's be clear, our next step must be action. Looking ahead to the Digital Fairness Act, we have a massive opportunity in this mandate to make the internet a safer place for our children. It's time to close the remaining gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the Catch the Eye for this debate. The first speaker is Mrs. Then second speaker is Mr. Andrew Katis for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Commissioner, Rapporteur, Schaldemose, and colleagues. I can continue in Lithuania.
As I listened to the statements of colleagues, especially those who want to protect our privacy, I would like to tell you clearly, you have to protect the privacy of children and teenagers because they are most vulnerable. Talk to the parents of a child who committed suicide, then you will understand how the child's privacy was crushed. Digital coming of age, the harmonization of requirements is necessary as we do in the field of tobacco, alcohol, games, of chance control. We have more than enough scientific arguments which are in favor of age limitation. 16 years is a good proposal, 13 years. This could also be a good age limit for the access of social networks. And we should also pay attention to the responsibility of algorithms. Thank you.
1 minute.